Welcome to this explainer on ancient inventions. We're jumping right into 6 incredible ancient technologies that modern science can completely describe, can analyze under a microscope, but get this, we still cannot fully replicate them. We're going to journey through history today to uncover artifacts that completely defy everything we think we know about technological progress.
Section 1. The myth of the primitive past. Okay, let's just dive right into this by confronting our modern superiority complex about history. We really tend to look at the ancient world from the top down, don't we?
We naturally define modernity by our advanced tech, our AI, satellites, and smartphones. Because of that, we just assume the past was restricted to primitive tools, sticks and stones. But that comfortable little worldview shatters every single time we unearth an impossible artifact, something that literally should not exist in the technological timeline we've constructed for ourselves.
Section 2. Nanotechnology and Optics of the Ancient World. Let's look at some absolute anomalies from ancient Assyria and Rome that totally shatter our timeline of scientific progress.
Found in modern-day Iraq back in 1850, the Nimrud lens is an optical marvel. It dates back to somewhere between 750 and 710 BC. It's this oval-shaped piece of rock crystal that actually provides a perfect 3 times magnification. Despite being precisely polished on a lapidary wheel over 3,000 years ago, it basically sat ignored in a drawer at the British Museum for over a century, just completely dismissed as a piece of decorative glass.
And this brilliantly illustrates a fascinating theory by Giovanni Pettinato. He pointed out that Assyrians actually depicted the god Saturn surrounded by a ring of snakes. Now, you absolutely cannot see Saturn's rings with the naked eye. But if you combine the Nimrud lens with another similar crystal, it could have formed the world's very first telescope. Were they looking at the cosmos millennia before Galileo? It's a fiercely debated mystery, but what a thought. Moving over to 1st century Rome, we have the Lycurgus cup. This thing is wild. When you light it from the front, this dichromic glass vessel is a dark jade green, but the second you place a light source behind it, it magically shifts to a rich ruby red. There's no paint, no superficial coatings. The magic is literally baked right into the glass itself.
So how did they pull that off? Well, when examined under an electron microscope in the 1990s, scientists found the answer, and it is staggering. The Romans had crushed gold and silver particles down to 50 nanometers. To put that into perspective, that is 2,000 times thinner than a single human hair. They evenly distributed these particles to refract light. We didn't even discover nanoparticles until the 1970s, yet Roman artisans achieved this on an industrial scale 16 centuries earlier, and we still struggle to perfectly replicate their distribution techniques.
Section 3. Lost Secrets of Sound. Now, what's really interesting here is how we shift from an irreplicable mastery of sight to an irreplicable mastery of acoustics. Let's talk about the Stradivarius mystery.
$15.9 million. In 2011, the Lady Blunt Stradivarius violin sold for that staggering amount of money, making it the most expensive musical instrument in history. It proves the unmatched acoustic perfection crafted in Italy over 300 years ago by Antonio Stradivari. Out of the 1,100 instruments he made, only about 650 even survive today.
So what makes them sound so incredibly vibrant? We've got dozens of theories. Some point to a mini ice age called the Maunder Minimum that produced incredibly dense wood. Others look at chemical soaks. We've found traces of borax, zinc, and mineral salts in the wood. Then there's the famously lost varnish recipe, which might have used propolis or volcanic ash. Despite centuries of chemical analysis, blind tests, and reverse engineering, the exact formula he used to create that deep, room-filling projection remains entirely lost to time.
Section 4. Medicine and Metallurgy of Our Ancestors. Let's step way back into the visceral reality of the Neolithic and medieval eras.
9,000 years. That is how long it's been since the first recorded dental surgeries were performed in the Neolithic settlement of Mehrgarh in modern-day Pakistan. Just to really put that into perspective for a second, that predates the first known Egyptian doctor by 4,500 years.
The details of Neolithic dentistry are honestly both fascinating and a little terrifying. Imagine sitting in a village without writing or metal and you have a bad toothache. A practitioner approaches with a flint drill mounted on a wooden handle. They drill holes up to 3.5 millimeters wide directly into your molars. Modern experiments show this rapidly rotating stone tip could bore through human enamel in about a minute. There was zero anesthesia, and we've actually found traces of beeswax used as early fillings to protect the exposed cavities.
But the absolute crucial point here is who taught these people? How in the world did they achieve functional, millimeter precision dentistry 8,500 years before the modern drill? They successfully removed decayed tissue without shattering the teeth. The mastery is undeniable, but the origin of this knowledge? A total mystery.
Fast forward to 5th century India, and we encounter yet another impossible artifact, the Iron Pillar of Delhi. This thing is massive, weighing 6 tons. It has stood in punishing monsoon rains and 50-degree heat for 1,600 years. Any normal iron would have rusted away to dust centuries ago. Yet this pillar completely refuses to rust. Legend even says a cannonball was fired at it centuries ago, and it didn't even leave a dent. Scientists finally cracked its secret back in 2003. The pillar forms a self-healing microscopic shield called mesoite. It's a layer just 20 microns thick, literally a fraction of the thickness of a human hair. But this incredible barrier completely blocks moisture and oxygen from ever reaching the core metal. We actually understand the chemistry of how ancient blacksmiths pulled this off using just coal, high phosphorus, and a hammer. They smelted the ore, retained about 1% phosphorus, and relentlessly hammered the metal for years. That pushed the phosphorus to the surface to catalyze the shield. We know the steps, but modern foundries, with all our advanced metallurgy, still cannot precisely replicate this ancient single-stage forging method.
Section 5, the fragility of modern knowledge. This brings us to our final technology, and it's a pretty humbling realization about human progress. Picture this. In the 10th century, Viking navigators crossed over 1,000 kilometers of the treacherous, cloudy North Atlantic. They did this 500 years before Columbus, without maps, and entirely without a magnetic compass. How is that even possible? Well, the sagas kept mentioning a mythical tool called the Sunstone.
For centuries, historians thought the Sunstone was just a fairy tale, but the mystery was solved when a piece of Iceland spar was found in a shipwreck. This calcite crystal utilizes a property called double refraction. Basically, it splits light. By looking through it and rotating it until the split beams align, a navigator can pinpoint polarized sunlight even through the heaviest, grayest ocean cloud cover, with 1-degree accuracy.
Computer models run by modern physicists show this simple, unassuming rock provided a staggering 90% success rate for crossing from Norway to Greenland. The Vikings didn't formally understand the physics of light polarization, obviously. They didn't even know the word calcite, but they knew exactly how to read the sky through this stone. This whole thing really forces us to reconsider the nature of ancient progress. You know, our ancestors weren't magically advanced. They didn't have alien knowledge. They just relentlessly solved the exact specific survival tasks right in front of them. But because this knowledge was so specialized, it often died with the masters. Empires fell, taking those life-saving secrets with them. Progress, for sure, is not a one-way street.
We live in an era where literally any fact can be searched in seconds, which kind of makes us feel invincible. But the Stradivarius varnish is gone. The Assyrian lens polishing technique is lost. I leave you with this provocative thought. One day, a future historian might look at our complex technology, our smartphones and satellites, with total bafflement, realizing we knew how to do all of this and still disappeared. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you think you know about the past.